Okay, in this video we're going to look at range names, or naming a range of cells and then using that in formulas to make things easier to read, so giving more meaningful names to a formula so you can understand what actually is taking place. So the first thing we're going to do is actually just look at different ways of naming cells. So if you look at that, we've got scores, so we're talking about D3 to D11. So if we look at our spreadsheet here, so D3 to D11, we want to name that as scores. Now there's several ways that you can do it. One way is in the top here where you've actually got the reference of the cells, so you can see D3 up here. If you just click in that and actually type the name you want, scores, and press enter, that will actually create that list. So you'll see there's actually a name list there. So if I was to click in my list and click on scores, it'll highlight all the scores. So that's what I've referred to with the scores. The other way that you can do it is actually under the formulas tab. You can define a name, so you could actually create a new name, and then there's a name manager to go and change any of that. So if I look at name manager, you can see there's a scores name. I'll just edit that, and the range for that is sheet 1, which is the sheet we're on, D3 to D11. Okay, so just click on that, it'll show me. Okay, cancel that. So I can use that same approach to actually create another range. So just back to that, so we've done scores, that's D3 to D11. Now we want matches, which is E3 to E11. So we'll use an alternative way of doing that. So E3 to E11, E3 to E11, which we're going to call matches. So again, we use name manager. I find that that's actually easier than defining names. That's only for creating names, and then if you want to change it, you still need to use name manager. I just find it's easier to just use name manager all the time. So we want to create a new name. We're going to call it matches, and we want to define where that is. And so clicked on that button and then highlight the cell, so it's E3 to E11. Click back on there again and check that that's what we've got, and say OK. So now I've got two names. I've got a couple of others. I want to do average score, which is F3 to F11, and we've got donations per point. So we'll go back to it. So name manager, new, and I think it was average scores. Yep, average scores. Select the cells. Let's go back to the spreadsheet. And OK. And the last one was donation per point. Okay, so click on that spreadsheet. New, donation per point. Okay, we'll use these names in our formula shortly. So that was oops, sorry, wrong one. There, and click on the cell. And okay, so I3 is the donations per point, and we can close that. Now, so as I said, name manager will give you a list of all of those, but also in this drop down list where you can find where you currently are, those names are also listed there. So if I click on average scores, it'll highlight the cell. So similarly for donations per point, it'll highlight the cell. Okay, so I can now actually use those names in my formulas. So the first one we want to do is calculate the average score for each player. So if we go into the average score column and we say equals and our fields were score scores divided by matches. Okay, so that will use all the values in those columns, but of course we're only doing the first one there. Now if I drag down, and I've calculated the average for each one. It's there. I could also use that in a formula. Actually, I'll just get my formatting right. Sorry, I got rid of the line under there before. Okay, so I can calculate the overall average by averaging the average scores. So I can use equals average, open bracket, and I want to select all of these average scores, so I can use my named field, so you can see average scores there. I'll double click, enter, and so that'll give me the average of these averages. Okay. Similarly, I need to calculate the charity donations for each player, which is this amount by the number of points, which is the score, I guess. So I can do equals donation per point, so double click that, times the score, enter, and it is calculated. So again, drag down, and I'll copy format painter and stick the box back. I'll format it. Border, stick the outside border back in. Okay, so there we've got that. Not sure why that formatting is gone. Let's try that. Okay. Back the way it was. Okay, so as you can see, we can use the names to refer to various cells instead of having to type in the cell. So instead of having to say average of, so an alternative would have been equals average, open bracket F3 colon F11. Okay. So that's how we would normally have written it. And okay, same result, but this is actually easier to read because we know exactly what it is, whereas with this we have to go and see what's actually in those cells. Okay, so just getting things a little bit easier to read. Okay, so there you go for naming cells.